Yes, sir. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Research Department 316, where my team of psychologists, Dr. Van Nguyen, Dr. Mobashir Hussain, and unpaid intern Hansen Chen, have been researching for the past 5 years on the unconscious mind.
Specifically, our team is basing our research off of Carl Jung's theories, a notable psychiatrist who believes that dreams in an unconscious mind could hold the truth in a person's reality.
Our opportunity to discover more about the mind came to us one day. We realized and received a patient who had been in a motorcycle accident and was apparently declared to be, well, brain dead, on his way to the hospital.
So, paramedics quickly hooked up the patient on life support, and he has been that way ever since. To measure his brain activity, an EEG and other instruments were used. Based on what we discovered, the man's dreams were rather odd. Because of the coincidence to the actual short story by Julio Cortázar, we named the project The Night Face Up.
The brain-dead patient, as we know, is living a dream within a dream. Our presentation today will focus on two contrasting dreams of a modern world and an Aztec world. You'll be referring to the patient's dreams and brain movements as a story, because that is basically what it is.
Now, to start off, Project Night Face Up is an analogy to the plot that we've given the patient. He will find himself struggling with a motor accident in the modern world, where he will be quickly transitioned into the 13th century Aztec world. Now, the first thought that should come into the patient's mind is that he's merely dreaming the Aztec world, but we've made it trickier for him. We gave him the sense of smell in the Aztec world, so he'll be struggling to decide whether he's in the real world or the Aztec world. Now, it is possible for the patient to think, so he'll be thinking, how can I imagine the future when I've never seen it before? And this is how he's going to decide whether he's in the Aztec world or the real world.
All right, let's give you guys a brief overview of the test subjects. It starts off with him, test subject, walking outside that hotel vestibule, where he seems to be in a hurry. He gets on his motorcycle and he is calmly riding it, where all of a sudden he runs over or gets in an accident with a woman who is running across a sidewalk very fast. He is rushed to the hospital by the paramedics, where he starts dreaming about the Aztec world. In his realm, he's a Morocan who is running from the Aztec warriors, whose goal is to capture him and ultimately use him as a sacrifice to the Aztec gods. The warriors capture him and declare him as a prisoner, as well as stealing his protective amulet.
Okay, at the hospital, the test subject is shifting between the real world and the dream world, and begins to heal from his wounds at the hospital. And back at the Aztec world, the patient starts to give up and accept fate that he will die, as shown when he's in his dream. He says he made one last effort, sketch a gesture toward the bottle of water with his good hand. It did not manage to reach it. His fingers closed again on black emptiness. He begins to accept that the Aztec world is his reality, and the hospital world is the dream world. He loses his thoughts and sensations of what has happened in the hospital and believes he is to be laid on the steps of the temple for sacrifice to the gods.
The test subject is an unnamed man who is a round character, for he evolves throughout the course of the story. There are two versions of this test subject, one in the modern world and the other in the Aztec world. In the modern world, the test subject is described to be leaving a hotel and driving the motorcycle down a city, which might suggest that he's in a good position financially. When the test subject gets into an accident, the first thing he does is ask about the woman he hit. This event reveals one of the protagonist's main characteristics, empathy. The character may also be nameless to create suspense, since it prevents viewers from connecting him to one specific world. The other version of the test subject features him running from the Aztecs who are trying to capture him for sacrifice. A trait that our character shows is the will to survive as long as possible, even if that escape is through a dream.
The antagonists are the Aztec, who are flag characters. They are complicated and they do not change throughout the story. The Aztecs are hunted for the test subject through ruthless and violent means. The Aztecs practice a ritual known as the War of the Blossom, where prisoners such as test subjects are taken in for a sacrifice to the Aztec gods. The purposeful murder shows that these warriors are ruthless beings. Minor characters in the story are, for instance, the woman involved in the accident, the paramedics, his neighboring patient in the real world, as well as the analysts, just to name a few.
Alright, so there are two major settings in the plot that we've given the patient. The first one is an orderly metropolitan where there was an ambulance that came to pick up the patient when he was involved in the accident. Now, this is predictable to the patient, and we have programmed the medics to be friendly and to shake his hand and wish him luck.
This setting provides a sharp contrast to the Aztec world, which includes a temple and a jungle all disorganized, dark, and foul in smell. The War of the Blossom took place in this setting, where the Aztecs captured prisoners and sacrificed them at a temple for the gods. Our narrator is running from the Aztec warriors in the jungle, and this world is filled with fear.
Alright, so in the story, the settings are often mixed and interconnected. We have made it in such a way that the subject's feelings would carry over from the two different worlds. Now, when he is in the hospital, he will be interactive with the patients also in the ward, as well as the medical staff. But he will carry the same feeling into the Aztec world when he is being chased by the tribe of Aztecs. And when, after for a certain time, he will also carry the feeling of being chased back to the medical ward.
Alright, so the theme of the project Night Face Up is escapism, because the test subject is seeking a distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by engaging in dreams/fantasies. So the desire for escapism is expressed in the division lines between reality and the dream world. If the Aztec world is real in his head, then the hospital represents a form of escapism, because the narrator finds solace in a place that is peaceful, content, and pleasant. The modern world depicts order, civilization, goodness, and safety, whereas the Aztec world is described as being savage, wild, and violent. The test subject does not want to face the reality that he will be sacrificed as a wild blossom. With his vision of a hospital being a sanctuary, the patient is able to escape the idea that he will most likely die. But there's further proof that the character is from the time of the Aztecs in his head, since he refers to traffic lights as green and red lights that burn without fire or smoke, and a motorcycle as an enormous metal insect. The test subject does not know the name of these futuristic objects because he's never lived in that time of existence. But if the modern world is real, then escapism is still evident, because this means the motorcycle accident must also have been real. He is still searching a distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, like his accident. But this time, the Aztec world is his place to hide and forget about the shock and pain from this traumatic event. Even though the Aztec world is dark and fearful, this dream represents his negative emotions and inner fear that he was the instigator of the accident. And, as my colleague Anthony said, the narrator is able to describe the modern world with an impossibly accurate details in which you can't dream of something if you've never seen it before.
There's also evidence that may explain why the test subject might not be in a differentiated world of reality and fantasy. The modern world and the Aztec world have a lot of parallel aspects. For example, the hospital bed and the stone slab, the hospital lights and the Aztec torches, the needles for surgery and the stone knife for the sacrifice. With the parallelism in mind, the following sentence might prove that the Aztec world is really a dream. Someone had approached him, with also a knife in his hand, approached him, was lying face up, with his eyes closed between the bonfires of his dog.
Symbolism in the Night Face Up is evident in the quote, "They got him over to the X-ray with still damp negative lying on his chest like a black tombstone." So, tombstones are placed over graves to represent the death of a person. The symbol may refer to the narrator's injury from the accident and is using a simile to compare the levels of pain to something heavy lying on his chest. Alternatively, the symbol represents death in the Aztec world, where the executioner priest approaches the narrator with a stone knife in hand.
The modern world and the Aztec world, as I mentioned before, have parallel aspects: the hospital bed, the stone slab, the Aztec torches, the stoplights, as well as the surgery and the stone knife for sacrifice. Both worlds are so alike but yet juxtaposed. These symbols represent the idea that either world could be a dream or a fantasy. By doing so, the parallelism heightens the contrast and the mood.
So found in an Aztec world, the amulet is a Mochican possession, which is another symbol. The object gives our test subject a sense of security, confidence, and hope. He is found to be reaching the amulet when hiding from the Aztecs. When he wakes up after being captured, he realizes the Aztecs had torn off the amulet, his real heart, the life center. So the test subject relies on this amulet for a sense of protection, proven when he states the amulet is his real life and his life center. But when he awakens and notices the amulet is gone, he knows he will be sacrificed. And in a way, if we think about it, the amulet is like a child's teddy bear, because a security blanket is provided for him.
So, after our thorough analysis in Project Night Face Up, we have came to the conclusion that we know that the real world is the metropolitan. But in his mind, the Aztec world could be the real world, or it could be the modern world. Now, this is where we cross into the philosophical field of solipsism, which is where you believe your mind is the only thing that is real, and everything around you is created through imagination.